Welcome back to AGI Schools Out Saturdays, where we are talking about preparing kids for their future, not our past. I'm thrilled today to have a fellow Hamilton County boy, Ryan Murray. At least I know you live in Carmel now. We'll get into whether or not you're from here, but you have quite a background. So you worked in Westfield school system in K through 12, as well as Fisher school system, and now you run the center, or you're part of the Center for Indiana Education Services, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I'd love to run it, but not yet. I'm not there yet.
Well, you're running the group that I was introduced into, which is the SAIL group, to look at curriculum for certifying teachers to prepare them in Indiana to teach about AI. So I cannot wait to dive into this conversation with you. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit more than I just did, and then we'll start talking.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So I actually did not start in education. Once I graduated college, I got out with a marketing degree from Indiana State and did that for a little bit and realized that wasn't my calling. And so had a wonderful girlfriend, now and then became fiance, now wife at the time, that said, you should do what feels right. So got my degree in education and back to back to teaching, or went into teaching, and started out in Carmel at Our Lady of Mount Carmel private school, and then went to
Oh,
Westfield where I taught fifth grade math, and then went to Hamilton Southeastern where I taught sixth grade STEM. Was an administrator over in HSC for a short time, and then after COVID, went to IU Indy, where I worked on some STEM related projects on a grant, and then the grant ran out and got me to CIESC, where I've been now for, gosh, I mean, I think my 3-year anniversary is like next week. So love all things STEM, math, science, ed tech, all of that space is definitely something I've always been pretty passionate about.
that's amazing. So, did you grow up in Hamilton County?
I did. Well, sort of. We moved to Carmel when I was in sixth grade. So I went to Carmel Middle School, and then went to Brebeuf. But yeah, grew up in Carmel for the most part. Was in New Jersey before that, but formative years were spent here. And my wife did too. She actually grew up in Westfield, so we are Hamilton County through and through.
Wow. See, my parents were Anderson, and then my dad worked for General Motors. So from 4 years old to sixth grade, I was in El Paso, Texas. And then we came back Carmel for a year. It was too much of a culture shock, and we ended up in Noblesville. And
Okay,
yeah, Paso to Carmel, especially back in the 80s when Carmel was kind of that up and coming,
sure.
it's a great place now. But there were some credit card millionaires in Carmel back in the day, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
Well,
probably off.
we moved here, I guess that would have been 2000 or 99, right around there. And I feel like anything north of like 136th Street, if you know Carmel, 136th Street was kind of just getting rolling north of there. So even from how long we've been here, it looks incredibly different, but love it around here for sure.
Smoky Row. My dad lived right there in that area, and now lives in Westfield. And Westfield, like, they still had drive your tractor to school day. I was in high school. I graduated '91 from Noblesville, right? It was
Uh-huh.
just farm town, and now it is just a
Yeah.
booming, robust northern suburb. And so the school systems here, I think, for people who aren't from this area and don't understand, but Hamilton County is probably the most wealthy county in the state of Indiana, and the school systems here are regarded as some of the best, from the Catholic private schools to just the public school system. Carmel,
Yeah.
Westfield, Hamilton Southeastern, Fishers are all kind of fighting all the time for top of the dog. Now, I have a theory when you go over to Fishers, right? And I've lived in all of them, but you see Technology Boulevard, you see the launch, you see, like, Fishers, I think, is trying to overtake Carmel as the premier city in Hamilton County by embracing the technology changes that are coming. And I'm not sure that they won't succeed in that.
Well, I'll never forget when I first started teaching there. We did a bus tour as new hire teachers, and we went to launch. We went to one of the new elementary schools that was being built, and um, there's a great deal of pride, but that pride was really the Hamilton County towns and cities are all very proud of the work they're doing. But Fishers had a program that they were just getting going, and it's not around anymore, the schools, but it was something where teachers could go online, and I'm going to remember the name of it halfway through this and shout it out. But teachers could go online and find industries that wanted to partner on field trips or guest speakers or whatever. And the teacher would just go through, find the thing they were interested in, click it, and it would send a message off to the business. And these connections were just so easy. And I thought, man, they got something going here. And then it went away. I don't know why, but they are yeah, they're always looking for that new innovation around, which is, competition breeds greatness for all of us.
Oh, it's amazing, and yeah, I would say it's a very friendly competition, just like the
Hmm.
Purdue Indiana University competition
Exactly.
here in the state of Indiana. It's we love all of our institutions, but some of us
Yeah.
love some of them a little more than others.
Right.
So tell us about sales. Tell us about the work that you're doing now and what brought you to that.
Yeah. So Um, CIESC, for those that aren't familiar with the organization, Central Indiana Educational Service Center, we're one of 9 service centers throughout the state. Every state pretty much has a service center model or service agency model of some sort. Ours is broken up into 9 individual nonprofits. We're not state funded. We rely almost exclusively on our member districts that pay their membership fee to receive our services, which are a number of things from cooperative purchasing to professional development to mentoring, all sorts of things. So, um, my role there has been as a specialist in a variety of projects, almost all revolving around STEM in some way. Sometimes that's work-based learning, sometimes that's ed tech. But then obviously, 2 or so years ago when education, I feel like, woke up to AI, um, started to pull their head out of the sand a little bit. We said, "All right, we need somebody to kind of think about uh, AI and how we're going to support our districts in that way." So fast forward to about a year ago, I was at a conference and met somebody from out east that was saying they had started this certification program that was strictly for teachers. And it really just got my wheels turning about, Indiana and what are we doing here to support our educators in a really meaningful, uh, I don't want to say exclusive, but intentionally built around Indiana needs, and while also maintaining some flexibility for individual teachers. So we as an organization kind of decided let's do it. Let's not wait for it. Let's not send our people, our districts and our educators elsewhere to find these things. Like, let's build this. Let's make this something. And so we got this sale organization and program going, which is strategic AI integration and leadership, and decided, like, let's be thoughtful about this. Let's not just um pull a program from somewhere else, slap our name on it, or let's build this in a way that involves educators, higher ed, industry, um, AI companies that are on the forefront. Let's talk to everybody, bring them together, and build something that is more than just watch these videos, answer these questions, we'll give you a badge. But it's show us how you're doing this, show us what you're wanting to learn, and let's make it really productive, intentional, and integrated into what you're doing in the classroom.
First, I love the buy-in model. So when the COVID money first hit, I was working in behavioral, not COVID, but the opioid money hit from the Sacklers and all the people that got sued because of the opioid epidemic. I was working in behavioral health and had been studying some East Coast stuff, recovery-oriented systems of care, ways that they've kind of integrated and was trying in Lafayette to convince them not to recreate the wheel and,
Mm.
and to look at those models, and eventually had to kind of Purdue University, I'm a huge Boilermaker fan, but if you're not from Purdue University, getting them to listen to you is not always easy at first. Once you get by it, you're good to go, right? But
Right, right.
eventually I Skyped in Larry Davidson from Yale, who they did listen to,
Mm.
and but once that they had, that was the cool thing that I think the first time I ever took part in it. It was once they had embraced the idea that there was something to the model, making it their own, and having all the
Mm.
stakeholders at the table to really have ownership in how it was deployed in Tippecanoe County, Indiana, was
Mm-hmm.
very different than, like you said, if we would have just brought in an expert from the East Coast who said,
Mm-hmm.
this is how you build a recovery road system of care, check these boxes and we'll move on. And so I love
Yeah.
that idea of a buy-in from all the stakeholders.
Yeah. And we not only tried to look for people from different industries and groups, but let's spread out across Indiana. So we have representation from Yorktown, Richmond, Madison, all the way up to Fort Wayne. So really spread it out because, as we kind of talked about, if we just said, "All right, let's get our Indianapolis or Central Indiana people together and talk about this," that conversation is so much different than for people down in Madison thinking about AI. So we really wanted not just voices of different sectors, but different regions and demographics, and trying to account for all that, so that when we go out and say, here's this certification or here's this program that we think is good for you, we can really stand behind that and say, we think it's good for you because we've had people like you involved in making it.
Yeah, and I shouldn't quote studies from a year ago, but when I was standing on my soapbox a year ago saying that no one below Enterprise in Indiana was paying any attention to artificial intelligence, one of the studies that I looked at did say that we were like in the lower five of adoption outside of Enterprise in the United. Do you still find that the adoption rate is slow? And what do you think that where do you think that comes from? I'll just frame this like I've always been pretty right winged. I don't get into politics, but I don't think conservatism has to be old fashionism or lack
Mm,
of progress. And so sometimes I
interesting.
think the
Yeah.
state hides behind like, oh well, we're a conservative state, so we have conservative values. Well, that doesn't have to mean that we're a non-progressive state.
Yeah, that's very true. I A lot of the work that I feel like we have been doing with districts, especially in the last year related to AI, has had a more rural focus. And um, in talking with rural districts, I think there's a lingering fear of um, being being left behind, right? So, we hear when one to one kind of came around and rural districts were trying to figure that out, when then COVID hits and trying to figure out how do we take care of our students in this space. um I feel like there was a lot of we're maybe behind, so let's figure out what we can do to not replace that technology, but try and level the playing field. And so I almost feel like there's this apprehension about ed tech's not what we do in rural spaces. So let's just wait and see. And we're really trying to say, hey, that digital divide is just going to get bigger, right? So now's your chance. Now's your chance to get on board with this, figure this out, so that um, you're not trying to catch up later. You're blazing the trails. Yeah, I keep mentioning Madison, but Madison, Indiana is doing some incredible stuff with AI, and their superintendent has been on board from the start to say, "Let's figure this out. Let's make it happen," which is really cool.
When you got Hunter Hickman up in Jasper
Heck
County, the
yeah.
most rural county in Indiana, right? I love so I he's been on the show and I think he's going to come on again. But I love that they started with Conmigo because they wanted something that was
Hmm.
vetted through the Khan Academy, and I believe Conmigo is really more machine learning based than it is
Yeah.
predictive model based. So
Hmm.
and so in education, that as well makes a lot of sense to me.
Hmm.
Um, one of the things that when I first discovered that, I was just in awe because I'm like, why is my kid in Carmel not not using AI, and yet Jasper County Rensselaer, there they are. Like, and one of the things that was proposed to me was that sometimes AI is not such a new word to rural people
Mhm.
because they have been using machine learning and
Mm,
and AI in agriculture for decades now, right?
yeah.
Whereas AI in the city has just been like Blade Runner and sci-fi movies is really the only way that most of us
Yeah.
have were
Right.
exposed to it before ChatGPT, right?
Right. Yeah, we saw Terminator, right? We know how this goes, right?
Right.
And that's the interesting thing too about maybe those suburban districts is that hey, if it ain't broke, right? I mean, things are working. They're seeing success, and with the rate of change that we're seeing with I don't know that effect has happened for the students yet, right? Like there's still time for that to come back and bite everybody, not just the suburban districts, but to bite everyone in the butt when their students a few years from now are entering the workforce and going, oh, I don't know that I have everything I need to succeed. That still hasn't played out, but I think it's coming.
Well, if I put on my risk aversion hat, which I don't really have one, but I could, I've worked with risk aversion. Like, this is a really risky technology when you're talking about data leaks. You're talking about predictive model that may spit out something different one day than it spits out the next day. You start integrating words like bias. Like, if I was one of
Hmm.
those people who was in school administration and looked at this, I'd be like, that is a nightmare. Like, I know from
Mm,
health, I've looked at it from a healthcare perspective and had conversations with the healthcare company that I worked for, where if you really want to go agentic, like, you're going to have to do that by training a model inside of a neo cloud environment and having complete control. This is not just a candle shop where you can turn it over to
right.
OpenClaw, and if it makes a mistake, oh, that sucks,
Yeah.
right? And education's like healthcare in that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when we talk to teachers, we're like, "Hey, PII, yeah, we want to use student data and analyze data and everything, but you're right. The second that there's some sort of a data issue, oh man, you've got big problems." And so yeah, there's that too of how do we know who to trust and who not to, and what products are going to be good for our staff and our students and our communities. It's a big transition to make, but that's part of what we're doing is trying to help these districts work through that because it's a lot and it's messy.
That's the thing with legacy software, right? So if we go back to the
Mm,
healthcare thing, like we were looking at if we were to use enterprise level chat GPT or Claude, and they're not HIPAA compliant yet. And
mm,
the thing is, like, Microsoft, I don't find their AI to be very attractive at all. And I hate being in the Microsoft environment. But if something goes wrong, like, you can fall back on Microsoft as the genesis of what went wrong, or Google as if you're talking
mm.
about OpenAI, they're not even in the black yet. Like, how are you gonna, when you're getting sued, how are you gonna sue a company who could easily declare bankruptcy and
Right.
reformat tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Versus these legacy companies that have more money than God that are going to help
Right.
cover some of that bill. I understand. I hate that because I think there are some really great vertical AI products in education. That's the one space where I feel like education has a lot of tools out there that are sandboxed for
Hmm.
education, whether it's Magic School, School AI, Google Classroom. Like, that's kind of cool because not a lot of industries have customized sandboxes like that.
Right. Yeah. No, we work a lot with Magic School. We're a partner with them and have been trained by them to help districts work through some of their questions and build things in Magic School. School AI, Brisk, right? There's lots of other companies that are coming on board and having their products, but yeah, the focus I've noticed from all of them is it's a safe environment. That's what they have to lead with is it's not only safe for your students, but it's safe for their data. Um, and yeah, we'll talk about all the features later, but just you need to know that right out of the gate is that it's safe, because that's a big concern. Yeah.
Sure, and that's gotta be tough. I mean, if you're like a district superintendent and you're looking at, okay, so we're not just talking about a school keeping their data. Now we're talking about a whole districts where there's data all leaving our environment, going onto a third party platform that is brand
Hmm.
new. that just launched years ago. Like I understand, I get those things, but I do think that for teachers, like there's nothing better than having AI can walk you through using AI, but most people don't know that. So
Right.
a platform like my cat has been meowing too, so your dog's welcome to bark. I wish
Sorry.
when a book my cat was meowing so she'd go away. Uh, that sounds like a big dog.
It is a big dog. He's about 100 pounds, Pyrenees mix. Yeah. He's an idiot
Awesome,
too. Yeah.
awesome. Well, and you know, on the data leak thing, when you look at a company like Open Anthropic, which is like my
Mm,
go-to, like they just leaked terabytes worth of
I
data
know.
on Claude Code. Like,
Right.
you can't hold on to your own proprietary stuff. How do we trust you to hold on to ours?
Yeah. No, it's such a wild time and technology to kind of wrap your head around because it's evolving so fast that the second you think you have it figured out, I promise you don't. Um, and so that, that's another thing that for teachers I know is difficult is it, I feel like educators have the mentality of I'll wait until I know it's really good, right?
Mhm.
We are so accustomed to best practices. I'll do the thing for my students that I know is going to help them. And so that's kind of the antithesis of what we're seeing here. It's like this stuff is really good. Trust me, it's going to help. That's not how educators work. We need to know that it works, not just believe and trust that it works.
Yeah, I liken it to like when something comes out on the market, like a medication, like or a
Hmm.
vaccine. I'm one of those guys who's like, 10 years from now, if no one is sued because they found out there were some weird side effects, I'll be happy to take that medication, right? But
Yeah,
and that's probably how educators are with education tools, but we just don't have that kind of time because 10 years
right.
from now, this stuff's going to look like the Stone Ages compared to what we have in 10 years.
Right. And that's why it's so important that we are helping educators understand this. And that's, to kind of circle back to the certification program is equipping educators with as much current knowledge and updated knowledge as we can so that they can then talk to their students in educated ways about this technology that's, yeah, it's going to affect us and our generation, but not even close to how much it's going to affect the generation that's in schools now. So equipping them with whatever we can to better the students' abilities going forward is what we're all about.
And so what does that look like?
Mm. So specifically to what we are putting together, it's kind of we've discussed this kind of tiered approach of starting with literacy, and that word gets diluted more and more every day. So I'm hesitant to use it, but it really does kind of paint the best picture. So, starting with literacy and understanding the vocabulary of AI, because I know so many teachers that you start talking about AI and they go, "Oh, ChatGPT." You're like, "Well, sort of, right? Yeah, a Kleenex is a tissue. Same idea here, but um, we need to just build that understanding of what is AI, what is generative AI, what is multimodal AI, um, what's a token, right? Somebody mentioned a token. What does that even mean? Those are the kind of things that build that up so that they can feel comfortable in the conversation. Um, and really begin to think about how does this fit, then kind of scaling from there to say, all right, now that we've got this understanding, going to student integration, and then being able to develop lessons that their students are using AI, um, building systems that cut across their district, um, taking it that step further, really leading into integration. And then that tier 3, which, comes after we have this educator go through the first 2, becomes kind of this global approach of now how are we connecting with industries? How are we showing our students what AI might look like in their careers? How are we thinking at this global level of AI integration into education, taking it and being really transformative? to a place that I don't know that we're seeing a whole lot of quite yet. Um, so that I mean, that's kind of what we're hoping, and it takes time and building a community of support, so that teachers know I'm not doing this by myself. I'm not, like I mentioned earlier, sitting at my computer watching a video. I'm engaging with other educators. I'm trying things. I'm getting feedback. It's really more about developing the teacher or developing the educator than just teaching them, but elevating them to a new level.
Yeah, man. While you were talking, I was just thinking if you're a really progressive econ teacher and you have a free period where you can teach whatever you want, tokenomics, the first school to have, like,
Yeah.
seriously, influence
No, you're
cost,
right.
like that, it's that would be awesome. That would
Mhm.
be awesome. I was also thinking as you were talking, and I lost it because I knew if I weighed too heavily on that one. I don't know what come back to that, but I had a sub thought. I know what I was thinking, which is one of the things that I think that I see, right? And I'm always happy to be wrong, but as an outsider looking in, what I kind of see is high schools wanting to get workforce development
Mm,
contract so that the employer will teach the kids how to use AI, and employers being like, no, I kind of want you to teach the kids how to use AI before they come here. And then that's the whole value of having young people. And I think sometimes what we overlook as adults, like I was in martial arts as a kid, right?
mm,
the Some of the best students were the kids that were street fighters, like really rough kids that you actually brought in and taught some discipline and some respect and some sportsmanship and fine-tuned what they were already doing. And I
mhm.
kind of feel like we're in that place like that with technology. Like these kids are already using
Yeah.
artificial intelligence. We just need to let them show us how it works and then steer them toward safe use of those products, away from anthropomorphization, away, like that one's huge. It's a whole, could be a whole
Yeah.
subtopic, and
Oh, yeah.
it's crazy, but it's not the, that's probably a smaller percentage of kids, but there are also kids who might just not do things, might not realize bias, might be tricked by sycophancy into believing that every idea they have is like the best idea in the world. Like all those kinds of kind of 101 things that I think students need to
Mhm,
understand, like, hey, for marketing, one more thing, like the company that I'm with right now, we're producing using Claude to produce packages when we go to talk to potential customers that have like all kinds of templated sheets. Like this Claude project just creates it. We're going to switch it over
mm,
to co-work to where it just creates it. Right now, there's a little bit of
mm.
copy and paste, right? But they're never exactly the same, right? And so it used to be like that was a no-no,
Yeah.
right? Like you had to,
Right.
everything be on brand. I have a feeling if you're not Coca-Cola 5 years from now, brand will be a feel, not a. It
Oh,
has
yeah.
to be this hex color, this font, that right, because it's a different world. And thank
Mhm.
God I didn't go into marketing because I feel
I know.
you were good to pivot.
My wife works in marketing, specifically, in branding, and they are reckoning with AI like never before and trying to figure out the way that fits into their space. But I wanna go back to something you mentioned about, um, the kind of thing about the skills of, bias, recognizing bias and things of that nature. I think it's really important too, and something we are gonna talk about through the certification process is not just talking with students about AI, but developing those human skills that are integral to not just, AI work, but working with others. We talk about communication. uh, Students are going to need to be able to put together a really comprehensive thought. And that is not just for prompting, but that's for talking to the people across the table. Recognizing bias is not exclusive to AI. Media literacy has been something that educators have been talking with students about, and how do you recognize the bias that may exist in a on a, TV station or something in print? How do you analyze data to tell one story, whereas someone else takes that same data and says the complete opposite thing? Like, how are those things happening? So that's part of being a global citizen. And now the task is, let's also look through the frame of AI to understand all of those pieces of being a human being. Now, what does it look like in this space as well? Because that's going to be just as much a part of it as working with human beings.
I couldn't agree more. And I think in the K through 6 space is where you kind of intertwine, like, so if you're talking about bias, you don't have to just talk about machine bias. You can talk about
Mm,
human bias as well. Like, it came up when there was a big stink about the bias in HR bots, right? Like, people
mhm.
started saying, "Oh yeah, well, how about this crotchety old fart that's been the leader of HR in this company for the last 30 years? Like, if I can identify it in a large language model, I can fine tune it out. Good luck getting it out of that guy, right?" So like showing them like bias is not just a machine thing, it's a human thing. And
Exactly.
here's healthy ways to navigate it in a relationship versus how to fine tune it out of an algorithm. Like,
Mhm.
that's probably getting like 8th to 10th grade level once you get to that, but you can start there. I always say like the whole Schoolhouse Rock, like how Bill became a Bill. Like, teach these little kids what's going on under the hood at their level, and they
Yeah.
probably won't fall in love with it when they're 14 because they understand it's
Right.
not sentient or even close to it. It's just a damn good stochastic parrot.
Right. Yeah. I know. I was telling somebody just the other day, I was doing a training and I was doing some live prompting and showing the educators how it works. And I was like, I really want one time for the AI to just be like, "That's a dumb idea." Right? Like, just shoot me down once. Don't tell me everything is great and what a great question and great idea, and just tell me, "No, that was bad, Ryan. Don't be an idiot."
Do you use Claude?
I don't. I don't. I mean, I have it on my computer and I've played with it, but I need to use it more for sure.
I'm going to go against my own advice here, which I always advise not naming all your projects and stuff human names. One, because I'm just not that into anthropomorphizing it, but two, because
Sure.
3 months from now, figuring out what Joey GPT does is hard. Whereas if you name it copyright assistant, you will know
Right.
when you go back what it does, right? But I
Uh-huh.
kind of call Claude Geppetto because Claude, sometimes when I start trying to tease out like different ways to train models in order to get a different output, it will actually say to me like, "Hey, reality check, you don't have a
Okay.
PhD, you don't have $1 billion, so why are you wasting your time with this? Why don't you focus on the stuff that you're good at?"
Yeah, interesting. No, I haven't used it enough. I use Gemini a lot for my that's kind of my daily driver, I guess. We have the Google Suite, so it just kind of makes sense for us. But then, I use as we've talked about, Replit is my new favorite thing, and love spending time building in there. Um, Trying to think what else I played with.
You
GenSpark
must
for
use
a little bit.
ChatGPT for getting that much sycophancy.
It was. That was the first love, and now
Yeah,
Gemini has taken over, but you're right. That one's pretty rough.
it is, and they're shifting. I mean, so
Yeah.
I think what they've realized is they wanted to go B2C. They wanted to get the consumers
Mhm,
and
mhm,
use
mhm.
ad revenue to do everything. And the best way to keep people engaged with a one-on-one conversation is to tell them how great they are and how wonderful everything is, which is interesting because it's the opposite of social media. The best way to keep people engaged with social media is
Right.
to piss 'em off and like
Yeah.
get the rage baiting going. But
Yeah.
I think that Anthropic quickly realized that there's more money in enterprise and a lot faster money in enterprise. And if you tell every CEO that every idea they have is a winner and they go lose a couple $100 million, like, they're going to stop using your product. So
Mhm,
it's interesting. I think you'll find less sycophancy going forward in ChatGPT, but
mhm,
at the same time, I love the fact that they all kind of have different skills. And I remember talking on the Ivy Tech. Ivy Tech had a board where they're trying to figure out what their curriculum is going to be like. And one of
mhm.
the questions they had was, do we teach the kids like the different skills of the different models? And I'm not sure that's really that fruitful in a short class, but it is definitely a skill set that going forward will differentiate you. If you understand how to leverage different AI features for different things and keep up with that
Yeah,
landscape, that I think that will be a skill set that is valuable going forward.
100%. I mean, I listened to a podcast, the AI Daily Brief,
Oh yeah.
that's just to, get my day started and understand what's new because it does change daily. And, They do, I'm sure you know, but, a monthly kinda check-in with listeners of how they're using AI and the platforms and everything, and though the people that are, listening to that kind of a podcast are using multiple models, are using multiple, um, tools, and I think that is you're right, that's a necessity because they all do operate differently, um and they all have different strengths, right? Like the way that I use Replit to do vibe coding and create things, I know Claude Code is right there with all the the trailblazer in that space, but um, I find Replit to be user friendly for what I'm doing, and I understand it really well. And so if I just used Claude or Claude Code for everything, I don't know that I'd be doing what I'm doing with Replit and creating what I am. So, yeah, that's another thing that is not typical for teachers is we usually find the one thing that works really well, and that's what we're going to go with. But having that Swiss Army knife or that toolbox of different things is crucial.
Well, I'm going to piggyback on that. If people just want to keep up with what's going on in the AI space, Nathaniel Whitmore's AI Daily Brief is a one amazing podcast.
Hmm.
And he would take his hat off to you because I know he always says that you have to lead by example if you want to do these initiatives. So when you first sent out the website landing page that you had developed and I saw it was Replit, I was like, oh man, that's awesome. You spelled this, you vibe coded this like that. Way to lead by example.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I think you have to. You have to, put words into action. And if I'm going to tell educators that they should be learning about AI, and I'm not using the AI tools I'm preaching about, then it rings hollow. So, yeah, gotta practice what you preach.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at things. And I do think that those soft skills, which that's going to be very interesting. So at one point in time, I thought that the gold skill was going to be kind of to be able to be the liaison between your really STEMmy thinkers and your really creative or
Mm.
business thinkers, and like
Hmm.
kind of translating. But I think actually kids of the future, not too long from now, will have to be able to communicate with each other in groups where they all have almost like Scrum style, right? Where like
Yeah.
depending on what we're talking about, you're the subject matter expert, but we all have to be able to communicate with each other in a way that resonates with the entire team.
Hmm. Yeah, and there's certain teaching strategies like we lean into this model called building thinking classrooms or by Peter Liljedahl that really does kind of focus on that and being able to communicate your thinking and agree and disagree in productive ways. And so, AI fits really well into those skill sets because I need to be able to look over a response from a prompt that I've given it and say like, "Oh yeah, that is good," or "That's not good. That doesn't accomplish what I was wanting." Or if I pass off a task to somebody else and they use AI, am I, comfortable enough to, say, "Hey, this did you use AI? It's okay if you did, and if you did, like, did you look at it?" And those things, those interpersonal skills, um, just become more and more important, and it's something that poor teachers, they've already got 1,000 standards to teach, and now we're like, hey, also make sure you work on interpersonal skills as it relates to just being a human, and as it relates to AI, and
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a lot.
But you've named some skills that I do think are gonna be the jobs of the future. So you already see red teaming, right? Like, which that was called
Mm.
hacking when I was a kid. Like, you
Mhm.
you either went to jail or the FBI offered you a job according to TV because you were so good at it, right? Now it's like a really high paid job. You wanna come and see if you
Yeah.
can try to break our system, we'll pay you a ton of money to
Mhm.
just sit around and try to break the system. That's really cool opportunity for some really smart kids. Evals are gonna be a whole 'nother one. Like, how do we evaluate this system? That was one of the things I brought up in healthcare was if you have agentic AI and their third-party tools that they're using have predictive models attached to them, then you're going to have to be doing evals like way more often
Yeah.
than if you're using machine learning where you knew the outcome of every query was going to be the same and you just had to make sure it didn't drift over a 6-month period. Now you're talking about in real time, how do we
Mhm.
make sure that this stuff is not violating our company policies or leaking data that we don't want leaked? Like those kinds of skills. I do think STEM skills, it may not look like learning how to write code as much anymore, but the
Right.
STEMs will be paramount in the future.
Yeah, and they cross sectors, they cross positions. This is not something that just affects the tech sector. Like we've alluded to several sectors that are seeing this, and blue collar jobs are some that are already being affected in ways that these tech changes don't often hit blue collar like they are. And it's something that no matter what our students are looking to do, they're going to need to have some understanding of how this all works to be successful.
Yeah, how does it all work, and how do I communicate with other people in order to solve problems, right? And we haven't even mentioned robotics, which is gonna have its ChatGPT moment at some point in time and change things again,
Mm,
right? But I do
mhm,
think one other thing that I've thought about while we're talking, which is a hole that I fall into sometimes, is if you get so deep into playing with this stuff all the time, sometimes you lose sight of the basics that are necessary. Like I
mm,
remember Ivy Tech asked me to if I wanted to interview for an adjunct teaching job, and it was for prompt
mhm,
engineering. This was a year ago. Prompt engineering or building custom GPTs, and I was like, prompt
mm,
engineering is a waste of time. Like
mhm.
I can get Gemini to write a better prompt if I just tell it what I'm trying to do. And
Right.
I was so wrong. Like prompt engineering is actually a very basic skill that teaches you how to communicate, and it can be very useful cross functionally. Like if your marketing department is sharing useful prompts with your sales department, now you have two different teams working on AI together. Like I was just way wrong, but it was because I was looking at it from like in my
Sure.
daily use, I know enough about prompt engineering. I'd rather just let Claude write the prompt, right? But that doesn't mean you don't need to learn it in order to. Does that make sense?
100%. But the thing that came up during that ideation day for the sales certification, which was really interesting, was prompt engineering is important in this context, but it really falls under this umbrella of communication, right?
Yeah.
Is if I'm able to verbally or in writing or whatever just get my point across to another person, or just even to myself internally to fully flesh out what I'm thinking, um then that translates to prompt engineering. And so that goes back to that human skill of just developing the ability to flesh out a thought, to communicate it in a meaningful way that other people are going to understand. um if we call it prompt engineering because we're talking to a computer, then so be it, but it is part of a larger thing.
Yeah, if my wife was better at prompt engineering me instead of thinking I was gonna read her mind, we do. Yeah, I'm with you. I I've thought about writing a book about it, right? It happens with employers, it happens with spouses, it happens with friends, like, spit out a sentence and then think you understand exactly what they want and then are
Right.
disappointed you bring back what you thought you heard them say. The
Hmm.
exact same thing with large language models. We could learn a lot about human communication from that kind of, from that kind of a scope of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think about the trainings that we do with teachers on like lesson planning, and we talk about how to use AI for lesson planning, and we talk about the CoStar model, which is a framework that came from Promptathon or something of that nature last year. But it's like context, objective,
Mhm.
style, tone, audience, and response, I believe is the R. But anyway, um, we have them start with like, okay, just enter a prompt as you're thinking about it. And some educators or just people in general are going to be like, write lesson plans for a sixth grade science class. Like, if you told another person, help me write a lesson plan for a sixth grade science class, they're going to look at you and they're going to go, okay, what are you teaching? How long do you have to teach? What are your students interested in? And so it's just kind of saying, yeah, let's think about all of these pieces that we know are necessary. You can't just go in with these basic prompts and expect the results that you've heard other people are getting. they're getting those responses because they're putting in these, more meaningful prompts and thinking through what they really want to get out of this.
So true, and I do think so. I've heard mixed things from the podcasts I listen to and the people as to whether or not learning Python, learning how to code,
Mm,
is valuable anymore. Learning the thinking, understanding how computers think and organize things, which is one reason why we've been able to automate everything in software because it's all very defined how everything works. And in white collar work, nothing's defined. Like John does it differently than Susie does it, right? But so that kind of thing. But I do think data analytics, data
mm,
science, understanding data is a
mhm,
paramount skill of the future because you mentioned context. If you don't know how to give these models the right data and how to
mhm,
help a team maintain data hygiene so that that's actually, useful data and not just a hodgepodge mess, then none of these projects will ever get off the ground. And businesses are starting to see that now. So I would love to see more like ground level data courses in high school for
mm,
as just an elective, right? Not just for the tech kids, but like
right.
data 101, I think is a fundamental skill going forward.
Yeah, I mean, there's classes like, college and career readiness and those kind of classes that are required. Yeah, something like that. I know financial literacy is now a requirement. I
A
would
few years
hope,
too late, and now we're ready for data literacy.
right? I would hope that something like this is viewed as just as important in the near future because it will be. You're absolutely right.
Oh man, I don't want to keep you all night, but this is an awesome conversation. So I've that's my I'll throw out a couple of my recommendations in like a couple of years. So my
Yeah.
recommendation to anybody in high school or college is learn about data, learn data literacy, and then my recommendation to Purdue students and all these students that have computer science and data science backgrounds and are having trouble finding jobs is stop looking for a job on 1,000 person data team or tech team and go out to because there's a million small to medium sized businesses right now
Oh
that
gosh,
have
yeah.
no idea how to do any of this stuff, and you will be sitting around with everybody on the leadership team and explaining it to them. Like that's a great in if you have that kind of background right now. Those are the two pieces that I'd throw out there. What do you say to
Mm,
kids in this day and age?
gosh. This is gonna go in the face of kind of what we've talked about, but I think it's paramount. Get off your computers
Yeah.
to the kids. Talk to the people that are around you. Because like we've said several times, those skills translate to success in this space. But I see so many students that are losing touch with the people around them. And at the end of the day, no matter how far I truly believe, no matter how far we go down this AI path and however it transforms the way we work and the way we understand and the way we learn, there's still humanity at the heart of it that our students and our young people need to be embracing and understanding. um, that's certainly key to this, and I try not to ever lose sight of that. I spend so much time talking about AI with teachers and administrators, and I explain that ahead of time. Is I'm not saying that we need to replace the human pieces of teaching and learning. Those are so important. It's just that we have to understand where AI fits into this world of teaching and learning. And then my second recommendation or thought for educators would be, you know, by changing the way that you are doing things, it doesn't mean that you failed before. I think there's a big hesitation by educators, and I'll speak personally. When I learned new ways of teaching, it was hard to change because that meant admitting I wasn't doing it the best way possible. But it didn't mean that I failed my students that came before. It just meant that I was doing what I thought was best for them. And now I'm going to do what I think is best for who I have now and who's coming. So don't be afraid to admit that there's new and better ways to do things. It's a constantly evolving, changing world, and It's all good. Let's just roll with it.
That's amazing advice. It does make me think of something that I've talked about, which is I think that this might be a chance to shift the way that our youth interacts with technology because I think if you look at Asia, most of the
Mm,
kids over there, to my understanding, they use technology to build things. Like
mm.
they had a 5K with robots over in China like a year ago that were like everything from like a janky falling over thing to like a biped that was doing flips, right? And I feel like our youth consumes and Asian youth
Mm-hmm.
uses it to build. And if we could switch that mindset from consumer to
Yes.
creator and builder, like
Yes.
that would
Yes.
be
Yes.
such a positive impact on our youth and our country.
Love that. 100%.
Okay, here's my last two fun questions, right? So I always ask at the end, if one movie had it right a decade from now, which sci-fi movie do you think we're going to be living in?
Oh man, which do I think we're going to be living in? Oh gosh, what a great question. Um, I'm gonna go with. Okay, I'm gonna say the one that's in my head. I don't know that I believe it 100%, but I think it's kind of fun to consider. But some version of like Tron, okay,
Okay.
and I'm specifically thinking about like and I wasn't a consumer of the original Tron. I saw the second one and loved the soundtrack and listened to it still because it's an amazing soundtrack.
Thanks for making me
But
feel old. That's cool. Yeah, we're worth it.
I'm sure
You're
my
the
dad
jet.
made
You're
me
the
watch
Tron. All
Tron.
right.
but really like the part of it being this uh relationship between computer and humanity, and what does that interaction mean, and how do we navigate that, right, in this kind of continually blurred line between the two, especially thinking about our youth and how they believe that the AI bot is real, and that they're their best friend. um that's kind of where that's what my first thought. I'm gonna have a better answer as soon as we end this, and I'm gonna text
Oh,
it to you.
I mean, actually, I think a lot of the techie people that are building this stuff would love to gamify life a little bit more too, which kind of
Right.
aligns with Tron, right?
Yeah.
I've heard them talk about gamifying work to the point where work is just how do me and my AI navigate the game of let's make money for this company, and so that's
Hmm.
very interesting. I always think Blade Runner. I think Blade Runner.
Yeah. I was thinking it, but then I figured you'd had that answer before, and I didn't want to
You
say
didn't
that.
want to be dystopian. Admit it, man. You're a pretty cheery guy.
That's
If you
true.
look at the Industrial
It's
Revolution, though, I mean, there's usually a period where things are not great. That does not mean that there isn't something on the other side of Blade
No, you're
Runner.
right.
Fine, but I do think we probably will have synthetics that are problematic. I don't know they'll be hit people, but I think they'll be problematic in some way. That
You're
we're
probably
probably
right.
headed towards big companies overtaking governments and having way too much influence, and that the devaluation of the dollar may lead to major black market type stuff, which is kind of what Blade Runner is founded on. But
Jason, we were having a really positive conversation here.
but I was a Marine, so I'm like a suck it up kind of guy. I'll tell you what I tell my 15-year-old, which is if it turns out like that or the Terminator, like you're screwed. But I'm old enough, like I don't have to deal with it for that long anyway, so I'm cool.
I love it. I love it. I can't wait to tell my boys that. Like, hey, it's on you at this point, right?
Yeah, it's good luck with that. Like you better start knocking on doors looking for Sarah Connor soon.
That's awesome.
Thanks, man. Thanks for joining me. This is
Yeah,
great. We'll have to do it again.
absolutely. Thanks, Jason.
Whoa, man. Things just get real. Looks like this dude's riffing on 11 Labs. Is this guy using 11 Labs? And I wonder what model he'll work with next week? Yeah, ride that wave.